Okay, so working in 3D space, X, Y, and Z coordinate systems. We are, as you move from your top view, front view to right view, you're actually kind of resetting your working plane while you're doing that. So if that makes sense, right? If in my right plane, you can see I'm now drawing on the Z-axis there, or the Y-axis. If I switch over to here to my front view, I'm drawing now on my X-axis and my Z-axis, and if I switch to my top view, right, I'm now drawing on just the X and Y-axis reference plane. So sometimes you'll find yourself switching and drawing your lines very oddly, and you're like, what's going on? It's because you're switching working planes. So be careful about that, right? So I'm going to try to escape out of this stupid tool here. It's not stupid. Sorry, I shouldn't call it stupid. All right. So just a little more. We talked about scrolling in and out is zooming. If we hit the right button, mouse button, we're panning in these three views: the top, front, and right view, and we're rotating actually in perspective. And if you want to pan in perspective, you hold the shift key down and the right mouse button, and that allows you to pan in perspective. As you move from obviously one viewport to the other, you're activating the specific viewport that you're clicking in. Again, if you double click on a viewport, it makes it full screen. Properties, layers, kind of talked about that a bit. Talked about layer management. So let's just kind of start looking at the tools. Again, we talked about briefly that curve is kind of the most simplest form of object. It's just a line, a vector line more or less. And then it gets more complicated as we move our way up through surfaces, solids, and meshes. So draw a curve, then you can extrude that curve as a surface, and then you can extrude that surface as a solid, and then you can put a mesh on that solid. You can also apply a mesh to a surface as well. And a mesh is just almost like throwing fabric on something, right? And there's like these lines with points, and then you can start manipulating those points and changing the way the shape actually sits. So it's like putting additional grid lines on top of your surface or your solid, and then you can manipulate those grid lines to make the object look different. So curves, we're just kind of start off with points. So we can place single points or multiple points. I'm going to try to use the pull down menus to start, and then as we start to progress through this, we'll start to type in commands, but it's good to kind of familiarize yourself with the pull down menus and what the actual tools you have available. So single point in the top view, just places one point, and it places it on that plane, that surface. If we did multiple points, right, we're just placing on that surface, but as I switch to my front view, right, now I'm placing points in the Z direction, so they're kind of out in space here. And then again with the right, as I start to place points, they're again kind of out in space. So I'm going to be careful about how you start to draw things. I'm going to try and just delete some of these points and just work with the ones that are on the surface here of this grid. So we can also then select some of these points and we can connect a polyline through those points. And that allows us to create one line through a certain amount of points. And then it's actually separate from the points. So you can still move this around, right? But it's not actually connected to the points. It's just, it allows us to draw through those points if we wanted to. Line tool, obviously you can draw a single line and you can specify a distance. Doesn't really matter what distance, just as a reference you can specify that, and then it basically makes that line as long as it needs to be, and then you can place it at whatever angle you want. If you want to place it at a specific angle, you can type in less than or equal. I guess it'd be is this the less than symbol here? This alligator, you know, the little alligator from 2nd grade, a little less than or greater than symbol. So you can type that guy in, and maybe you want a specific degree, like 60, press enter. It then will snap to 60 degrees all the way around 360. So that's a good little tool to know if you need a specific angle. Which you will need. We can also create multiple segment line. So by clicking on this line segment, similar to dropping points, right? Hit the enter button after we're done here. But they're not a polyline, they're separate lines. So if we wanted to join those lines together, we could select all of them at once and start typing in join and find the join and hit enter. And maybe not have to hit enter. But now those are all connected together. And the other quick access to that is if you click the mouse button, this little dialog pops up. This symbol right here stands for join as well. You guys can see that. And then this symbol is explode. So you also find these on these two side toolbars as well. So you don't necessarily have to type it in anymore. I think I just clicked the right mouse button to get out of that. So if we wanted to re-explode those, hit the explode button and enter. It then breaks those apart again. So all three of those little tools, the angle tool and the join and explode tool, you will definitely be using on the first assignment. So polylines pretty much are continuous lines. So instead of drawing segmented lines and then joining them together, Polyline is one line. Polyline through points we talked about, and then polyline on mesh we'll talk about later on, but more or less once you create a mesh on a form, you can draw lines associated to that mesh. Rectangles, corner to corner or center to corner or 3-point or vertical. They're kind of all intuitively self-explanatory, but one kind of cool step is with corner to corner we can round the edges. So as we do one click and type in maybe a specific dimension, before we type in the second one we can click rounded and click in another specific dimension, and now we can specify a radius at the corners. So I don't know how big I made that, but maybe it's 1 inch. Middle mouse button. So that rounds those corners. And it also makes it a polyline. So it's one line versus if you did it afterwards with the fillet tool, then you'd have 8 separate lines. You'd have the rounded curves as separate lines from the straight lines. You'll be using that tool as well eventually here for the homework assignment. Freeforms, kind of interesting. They allow you to create splines. So I'm right clicking to end the command instead of pressing enter. Seems like an easier way of doing that. And F10, you might have to hit function F10, turns on your control points. I'm going to have to type mine in because it oops, I had the wrong thing selected, but oops. So hitting F10 allows you to turn on points. Hitting F11 allows you to turn off points, or NURBS, I like to call it, and you can then manipulate this guy. Let me see here. We can also, I believe, change the degree. I'm going to grab this up and move this over here so I can reference this for a second. There's a difference between 1 degree curves, 2 degree curves, and 3 degree curves in Rhino. A 1 degree curve, if you can imagine, is a straight line or a polyline, a continuous line. So this is a one degree curve. These are 1 degree curves. You know, as we start to look at arcs and circles, right, those are technically 2 degree curves where they have a single bend in them. But then 3 degree curves are basically very smooth NURBS based curves. We're talking about splines that can be manipulated here. I believe if we type in change degree, and we type in 1, takes that spline and changes it into back to a polyline. right? So in the same time, if we right click to redo that, so right clicking redoes the last command. We can change that back to a 3-degree curve. And now those control points, since they're on, we can start to manipulate that back into a spline-based object. In the same sense, we can type in rebuild and select this. It brings up a dialog box that says right now our point count is 13 and our degree of our curve is 3. We can change that. So maybe we want, I don't know, like 20 points, but we still want a spline, we still want curve points. And click OK, and it added a bunch more control points here. And so we got rid of some of those awkward kinks that were happening in the line, right? I always hit the middle mouse button to pan, and that's the wrong thing to do. So ellipses, parabolas, hyperparabolas, those are all very similar. Arcs as well. Center start radius, right? So we can make a 360-degree arc or whatever you want. And you can type in the dimension that you want to apply it to in the command line. Same with the ellipse from center. Right, we can create an ellipse. And each point that you select, you can type in a specific dimension. So if we know we want our start point to be here, or maybe, can we snap to this guy? Doesn't look like it. Let's click the near button and see if that works. No. Okay, I'm wrong about that. If we want to connect, you know, or make, we also hold the shift key down. It turns on our on snap as well. So with our control, with our snap points, right, on, we can start to snap to specific things like midpoints of objects, things like that. We can also just hit the shift key, hit the caps lock key to get that line straight, but we can start to specify you know, the actual size. Hey, welcome. And again, you can hit the, you know, whatever, 16 inches, right? And so we can specify the exact dimensions of those. It's not necessarily just kind of click anywhere and create these things. You can actually apply specific dimensions to all this stuff. Okay, so surfaces, we could go ahead and start drawing like a planar surface, which is just basically a surface with no thickness at all. Right, we'll just draw like a simple rectangle, and if we look at our 3D view, that's just a simple surface. We could also, I believe, use the extrude curve tool here, which you can find under curve way down here at the bottom somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe it's under surfaces. Yeah, sorry. At any rate, I'm in the curve, extrude a curve. And so curve, right, is any line. So I could select this giant spline that I created and hit enter. And now in my 3D view, I can create a surface off of that line. We wanted to add dimension to that. We could I think it's extrude surface here. Extrude surface. Click that surface. Let's see what's happening here in one of our other views. That's not it. Sorry. Extend surface. Let's try that one. So that actually extends the surface. Yeah, okay. I should have planned this out a little better. But extrude curve, plane, loft. Loft and a sweep. Let's mess with those two. Feel really bad about this. Okay, so I'm going to go into my right view and I'm going to create a line segment. And I'm not really too concerned about what size it is at this point. So in my right view, that's this piece, right? Yeah. And so I want to join those together. Could have used the spline tool as well. But we're going to now draw a circle, center radius, and I'm first going to lock on this end here, and I'm going to flip to my top view so that I'm drawing on this plane, my top, the floor plan basically. And I'm just going to create a circle. And now with our surface tool, we can sweep a rail. And so if I select my sweep rail, I can first select that line that we just created. And then I can select the circle and press enter. We get a little dialog box that says, is this a free form? Yes. We don't want to simplify it, but we could rebuild it with less control points if we wanted to, or more control points depending on what you want to do. But we're going to just leave do not simplify and click OK. And so if I scroll in here to look at this and maybe change my perspective view to be rendered, my line work pretty much disappears, but it allows me to see that I created a surface here, right? But it's not a solid object yet. And the reason why it's not a solid object is because our ends aren't capped. So this is a surface, this is also a surface. Even though we extruded it along a rail, it's still a surface because it doesn't have any thickness to it yet. So in order for it to get thickness, we have to cap our ends. And we can type in cap and hit enter and select our object and then enter again. And then that caps our object off so that now it's actually a solid versus a surface. Okay. And what else do we want to talk about here? Let's look at creating a circle again. Center radius. And I'm just going to place one here. And when we start to look, change our perspective view back to wireframe. That's our circle that we've drawn. We can, in our transform settings, I'm so used to typing stuff in that I actually don't know where the offset command is up here in the toolbar, which is crazy. Let's just type it in.
It says solid.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like the recorders right now. That's the way it is in mine. Yeah, I don't see it in yours.
Yeah. Offset. What did I do? Fill it? Let's try that again. Let's select that and switch to our right view here, and let's offset it. I don't know, let's go like 20 inches. Oh gosh, that was not enough. Let's change the distance and I don't know, 96 inches. Let's try that. It's a little bigger there. And so basically we've got one circle on top of the other. And when I click on the top view, it recognizes that there's one curve on top of the other. I'm going to make sure that we're clicking the top curve here. And we're going to transform this. We're going to scale it two directions. Let's get the center line here. Yeah. This near thing is screwing me up, I think. So I'm unchecking everything but center. There we go. And then I also want to maybe click the mid. Maybe not. Let's try near. And now we can scale this one down, the top one down a little bit. So now we're going to want to, we're going to loft a surface between these two objects. So if we click loft, select one of them and the other one and hit enter, enter again, get a loft options where we can rebuild with more control points, but we're just not going to simplify this at all, and click OK. And so if we look in render view, right, we now have kind of a cone shaped object. But again, it's just a surface until we cap it. Now it's a solid object, supposedly. The other tool is revolve. So with a curved line, let's do a polyline this time. And let's go ahead and try to revolve that. It's going to ask me for an axis. So maybe we want to try and revolve it in a weird direction here. Press enter. This thing looks crazy. We can type in a specific dimension here. So revolving angle is 360 at the moment. Press enter. Let's see what that thing even is. Yeah, that was the wrong plane to be working in for sure. Some trial and error here, you know. Let's try that one more time. Let's draw in the right plane. And maybe we'll get a little crazier with it for the fun of it here. And again, surface, revolve. Go ahead and click the, use that, and then and 360. That's a little better. That gives us something to look at least. Alright, but it's again a surface, it's not a solid object. So these are kind of things that won't use in our first assignment, definitely the final assignment. We're gonna be using that tool a little bit. So these are just kind of the basics of these tools. Solids. We have primitive solids here. If we hold down this button here, we can create any one of these shapes. So a rectangle, and then flip to our 3D to draw the actual Z direction. And that draws a solid right away. Let's go ahead and change this back to wireframe so things are a little bit more visible here. I'm selecting that rectangle that we created. Can probably extrude that surface. So any surface that you have, that was what I wanted to get out of this guy. So I go to solid, extrude surface straight. Did it to me again. Surface. Now I'm just playing. Okay. Stop with that. Go back to the lesson. I get sidetracked easily. Sorry. You guys are all like, oh my god, what do we have put ourselves up with here? I swear I had like 6 pens in my pocket. Everybody sign that sign-in sheet. That make it all the way around. What time is this class over? 7? I'm still getting used to this, I think. Although I guess it's the same time as the last class, huh?
It's the material.
It is the material. The material has changed. So the entire class has changed. Talked about the degree of a curve. We talked about polylines, arcs, circles, freeform splines. What am I missing here? Let's go back to this little guy here. we select the poly surface, we can go ahead and Control C, Control V, which is copy and paste, and we can move it maybe a specified distance of 18. And again, I just typed in 18 before I actually selected it. Now I can hit the shift button to go ahead and create a second one of those. And let's maybe erase some of this other stuff. Actually, better yet, let's put it on another layer. Put it on layer 2. Go ahead and right click and change object layer to layer 2. I'm just going to grab a bunch of this stuff and put it on layer 2. Put him on layer 3. You can see that the line work that we made that surface from still exists. It doesn't disappear or go away. So just kind of note that. We can go ahead and turn off some of these layers. And now we're only left with that stuff we can probably just delete. We're left with our really badly drawn chair legs here. And we can make it look rendered so that it's a little easier to read. Alright. We go into our right viewport here. Should be able to create a freeform control points here. I'm just going to start kind of drawing a freeform which kind of resembles a chair a bit. Let's see where that put that in space here. Nice. So we have this really poorly drawn chair, and I'm going to nudge it with the nudge key to center it a little bit, nudge it down a little bit.
What's the nudge key?
The arrow keys. Hopefully you changed that in your properties, otherwise it's like control and arrow key, which is kind of annoying because it makes it like a double hand task. Yeah. And we can turn on control points by hitting F10. Maybe we can massage this out a little bit. Is that looking like something you might want to sit in? Maybe, maybe not. So we could go ahead and extrude this curve, right, as a plane, but then it has zero thickness. And so what we can start to do is before we extrude it, we can offset this line maybe like 1/2 inch and create a surface to extrude, or we can extrude the curves themselves and then cap the ends to make it a solid surface. So let's go ahead and use the offset tool I'm going to type it in because I don't really want to start going back up to the menu. And I'm going to change my distance from 96 inches to maybe 0.5 of an inch. And I'm going to select my object that I want to offset. And you could offset it either way. I'm just going to offset it to the back side and click OK, or click out of the command to finish it. And cap this off with a straight line between the 2 points here, and right click again to repeat that command. And then go ahead and try and select all of these lines and hold the shift key down. Let's control, we want to redo that one. I think I want to turn my control points off here. I didn't want to move that. So, points off. What did I select there? F11 turns them off as well. Sweet, now they're off. So I can go ahead and select all of those first, and then use the join command. We just want the join command, not the join edge command. Alright, so now that's all one curve. And then we can extrude, if I could spell anything right. Extrude curve. We'll go to my top view. And let's just do it even with the chair, the center of the chair. Click OK. And maybe let's rename this layer, this green layer, surface. And go ahead and add that to that layer. So you can see we still have our line work here. Alright, it's kind of good to note that that's still there. And let's go ahead and select this and transform him and scale him 1D, and we can select, take near off and click midpoint and endpoint on our on snaps. And we can start to scale this guy out evenly here. Just kind of eyeballing it that the chair, is a little bit greater than the legs, right? And just to keep this in line with that, let's just go ahead and move him. So that that's still in line with it. Now this is not a solid yet because we haven't capped the ends. So if we go into our perspective view and go to render, we can see that if we scroll in here, that little shaded part indicating that it's not capped. So we want to go ahead and cap that. Try that again. think I might have capped the surface there. What's going on? Sweet. I love it when that doesn't work. It's always something. That should have capped it. I don't know why it didn't. Did yours cap? Anybody that's following, did it cap? Nobody's following. That's awesome. I'm going too fast. I'm like learning this along with you guys right now. I'm going too fast. Ooh, look at that. Huh. Okay. Well, that's new to me. That should have capped. That's a little annoying that it didn't work.
So now that you have the surface made, what would happen if you delete that shape that you made the extrusion with?
Just delete it. I was trying not to delete it because we were going to cap this surface, make it a solid, and then offset basically that curve and extrude it again, and then make that a solid and Boolean cut the front out of the back, and so there'd be like a recess in the chair, in the back of the chair. But my plan has been foiled by this thing not capping. So, yay. All right. That really kind of sucks. Let's talk about, I don't know, lofting multiple curves together. Let's just draw some random free form curves. That might get crazy here. Starting in 3D. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. So just leave those lines sitting there. And let's go ahead and create one in the right hand view. And let's Control C this and Control V. And if we also select it and hold down the left mouse button, we can just go ahead and drag it. And I'm going to Control Z and Control V that one more time, and just click on it and drag it. So now I've got three splines here, and I want to go ahead and turn on my control points. I want to find the quick access toolbar here for control points. Control points, alright. This guy's turn on control points by right clicking, left clicking on it turns off control points. I just want to not do what I just did. Use the right hand, the right side, and I'm just going to manipulate this a little bit so that it's different than the other ones. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off those control points, and I'm going to select see, you got to be really careful about what you do. I'm proving that right now. That one cooperated. So let's turn off those control points. Turn these ones on. And let's drag this guy. Now we have kind of three splines. We can go ahead and loft a surface, I'm hoping, between those three lines. That was a really weird spline. Let's turn control points off. And now we can turn on control points to that thing. That was really...
How did you hide the points again?
This guy right here, if you right click it, you can turn off points. If you left click it, you can turn on control points. Same respects, F10 and F11. F10 turns them on, F11 turns them off. Yeah, that really worked out well for me, didn't it? Let's try moving these a little further apart. The thing about control points is when you turn them on, you have a little less. Once you turn on control points, you can't really, that's all you can select is those control points. So if you're struggling with that as well, let's try lofting these three lines again. That surface looks a little better. So, you can turn on control points. At least I thought you could. What's going on here? Maybe we have to apply a mesh to it. I just wasn't pressing enter. Read directions. Always read directions. So bad tonight. So, then you can start to grab these curve points, right? And even manipulate. Ooh, sorry, wrong curve point. Let's try another one here. Whatever I did there really screwed me up. Surface point. If we grab the surface point, we can start to manipulate this surface even more. Not the curve point. So this is what they're kind of talking about, is this really these crazy mathematical based NURB surfaces, right, that you can start to create with this. So I don't know what we're making, but that's how you can loft splines, multiple splines. So if you want to create a really complex roof structure that has lots of really crazy unique curves, that's one way of doing it. Didn't get to show you guys how to fillet edges. Any rate, what we just did here is on that video. These modeling tips.
Welcome back for our second Rhino video. What I'm going to do here is talk about some basic modeling techniques. So, and I also wanted to mention that the way that you pan in here is just clicking the right mouse button and dragging.
He didn't tell anybody in class how to pan. It's 7 o'clock, guys. So, class is over for today.